Professor Ramadan, good evening. Welcome to the live broadcast of the Ramadan Online project. While waiting for Ramadan in self-isolation, our team started the Ramadan Online project for charitable reasons, and we want to be useful to the community together this holy month. That's why we called for you also to speak with us about Muslims, about this holy month and everything. So one more time, welcome to our live broadcast.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much.
So traditionally, we ask a few questions to the speaker at the beginning of our conversation. And our first question is, what is Ramadan month for you, Mr. Ramadan? And even your surname is Ramadan. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody. Ramadan is it's an important, of course, it's a very important experience. And I would say that for me, it's the time where you come back, of course, to your personal life. You come back to your heart. You pay a visit for 1 month to your heart and try to reform yourself, to think about the past year and prepare for the year to come. So mainly, and this should be the case, it's about a spiritual experience, and this is where we try again to pray more and more during the night and to be close to Allah. And by being close to Allah, what you are doing, it's important. It's the month of Ramadan is the month of the Quran and the month of generosity. This is where and when we have to think our sisters and brothers in humanity and in Islam, and we have to help them to have a dignified life.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ramadan. And the second question is, do you have a mission for your professional activity, your maybe super task?
That I have to do now?
You mean? Generally for your life, what you want to gain?
I hope to leave this world having done my best to serve God and to serve the message of Islam, meaning to serve humanity.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think it is a good way, and you show that it can be really very fast and done by one person like you. Thank you very much. So starting our topic about Muslims.
You have disappeared here. I can't hear you. No. Okay. So I'm here again.
So,
I don't know what happened.
Professor Ramadan, one more time. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we are listening for your main topic, and then at the end we'll ask our questions and listen for your answers. Okay?
Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You asked me to discuss the topic of the divisions and how do we have to overcome the reality of divisions within the Muslim community at the local level as well as at the international level, and how do we have to deal with this today? Because wherever you go, when you talk to Muslims, this will be the first thing that they tell you. We are divided, we are weak, we don't know how to unite, we don't know how to get a kind of ittihad, meaning a union between the Muslims, and we are always complaining about this. So I would say that the factors of divisions are numerous, are many, and we need, when it comes to this, to get an understanding of what are the main factors, because among these factors there are factors that we have to take into account because we can't neglect them. We can't change them. They are as natural as we are human beings. So this is something that we should know, that there are within the division natural factors of division. And there are other factors that we can change, that we need to change, that we need to reform in order to come together and to be able to transform the situation within the Muslim communities at the local level and at the global level. So I want just to stress on some of the factors, because very often the Muslims are working against the natural. They would like all the Muslims to be the same, having, we have the same faith, meaning we should have the same strategy, the same understanding, the same way of dealing with the reality. This is unrealistic. This is simplistic and dangerous. It's dangerous. You need to deal with the reality of diversity within the community. And I'm used to repeat and to say unity doesn't mean uniformity. Unity means that we come together with different views, different understandings, but we understand, and in a specific situation, we need to come together, whatever our thoughts are, whatever the reality is. And this is something which is also important. So let me start with some of the main factors, and that we should be, as Muslim, we should be realistic, we should be aware, we should have this consciousness that we deal with human beings. We are not only dealing with a sheep that you just say, oh, you have to follow the move. No, that's not the way. We need to have people, and the followers should have this critical thinking that it's also important for the leader to deal with. So when I say this, I would just highlight some of the main factors when it comes to diversity leading towards potential divisions. The first is we all refer to one book, Al-Quran Al-Kareem. We say, La ilaha illallah, there is only one God. This is a Tawheed. And we are saying he revealed the book. So he revealed the book, and as it is said in the Quran, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. So you have to hold on the rope of God, and the Mufassirun were saying the rope here is Al-Quran. The Quran is your link between the reality and Allah and God, and this is what you have to do. That's fine. The problem is that we should know that this book, it's a book of words, and it's a book of multiple interpretations from the very beginning. And it started with the Prophet ﷺ. You had Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and they have different interpretations. And this happened among the companions. It means that as Muslims, the unity of the community based on the fact that we rely on the Quran and that we believe in one God does not prevent us from having to deal with many interpretations of the book. So don't try to gather and to unite the Muslims by saying this is only one interpretation which is right, mine. No, that's wrong. That's not going to work. And we have to deal with many interpretations on many issues, and very essential issues. You know, for example, that between the Hanafi and the Shafi'i, the way we think about the way we pray could be for one group that your prayer doesn't count, and for other that's fine in praying. So they have different interpretation. So we need to get this as the starting point. Don't try to uniform or to standardize the reading of the book. As long as the scholars are relying on the text, relying on the ahadith, they are right, and there are many interpretations. And the scholars from the very beginning, during 200 years, we had more than 40 schools of law. So are you going now to tell us all this is rubbish and we just have only one interpretation and this is the way we are uniting the Muslims? It's not going to work. So this is a factor, many interpretations that we have to take into account, and we have to deal with this. So wisdom, al-hikmah, in this is to accept this diversity, to say, okay, how am I going to deal with this? It's just by accepting it. It's a mutual respect. we all are sincere in our belief in Allah. We try our best, and with this we are trying to get the right understanding. Now, this is one. So one book, many interpretations. Now, what we also have is not only we are interpreting the book in different ways, but we also have different traditions. So willing it or not, you have Sunni, and among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we have many schools of thought and schools of law. So schools of thought are people who have priorities that are different. For some, my priority when I come to the Quran is to read the Quran and to extract from the Quran everything that has to do with my own heart. So I want ilm al-qalb. This is what I want. Another one will come in the Quran, another scholar even, and his main focus in the Quran is, how am I going to implement the law? So I have a legal reading. You have another one saying, no, my concern is about social issues. I want to serve the poor. I want to serve this is it. This is what we should do. So you have, one is your heart, the other is the society, the third is the legal, and the fourth one is going to come and say, we need to talk about power. So we have different schools and different philosophy and different schools of thoughts that we have to deal with. You cannot just say to somebody who is telling you, you know what, I don't care about society. I just care about my heart and to have it close to God. I'm going to tell him that's wrong. You are complete. No, that's right. But you could say it's right, but it's not the complete picture, but it's right. For the one who is going to come and telling you, I want to serve the poor, and you're going to tell him that's not Islamic. Of course it's Islamic, but it's not all the Islamic message is not in this. You need to get another dimension. So we need to understand that there are different schools of thought. Now we will also have different schools of law. So you have the Hanafi, the Shafi'i, the Hanbali, and you have also another tradition as the Shi'i people, and the people who are telling you that they are not Muslims are not understanding. Of course they are Muslims. We disagree on essential issues, but on essential issues we agree. So we are saying La ilaha illallah when we are saying Muhammadun Rasulullah. So what do you want more than that? This is the essential. So you have schools of thought, schools of law, and we need to deal with that. So this is a second factor. And this second factor, I want our brothers and sisters to get this right, because if you don't get the factors of potential divisions, because there are factors of diversity, if you don't get this right in your mind, you are going to dream of something which is never, which will never happen. So this kind of unity beyond schools of law, beyond schools of, that's not going to happen. That's crazy. That's you're not. It means you are not dealing with human beings. You don't understand the way the Prophet ﷺ was dealing with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Omar, and other companions. He was dealing with a diversity of thoughts, and this is the reality of humanity. So this is the second level. Now there is a third level that you are based in Russia. I'm based now, I'm talking to you from Paris. I'm originally from Egypt, and others are living in Africa, and others are living in Asia. We have many cultures. So the way we read the Quran depends on our environment, our cultural environment. Does it mean that we don't have to take it into account? Who are we Muslims to say there is only one way to be a Muslim is like the Arabs? That's wrong. Islam is a religion based on the Arabic language, not the Arabic cultures. The Arabic culture are cultures that we have to change, because many things in the Arab cultures are wrong. They are not even Islamic. They are completely wrong. This has to be changed. There is no one culture on earth which should not be critically challenged, because in our culture there are many things that are wrong. The Russian culture, the European culture, we have to change things, because these are things that we got from our parents and we are repeating, but by repeating we don't think about them. But what we have to say is that as Muslims, our interpretation of the texts, our interpretation of the priorities is based on our cultures. So don't try to come from any country in the world and impose on the other cultures your way of thinking. You have to take cultures into account. That's essential. And the Prophet ﷺ did it with Al-Ansar. When he arrived in Medina, he saw that the people of Medina, of Yathrib, before it became in Medina, had another culture. They were not like the people of Mecca. So between Mecca and Medina, he was able to make a difference of culture. And we're not going to make a difference of culture between Russia and Senegal. We're not going to make a difference. We're not going to get that there is a difference. Of course, there is. So these are factors that you have to take into account. So the right answer in Moscow is not the right answer in Dakar or in Paris. You have to deal with this diversity. So this is why we also have to get this as factors of diversity. So now we have a diversity of interpretation, a diversity of traditions, diversity of schools, diversity of cultures. All these should be taken into account when we are Muslims. So the fact that you are my brother as a Muslim is based on we believe in one God. We follow the Prophet ﷺ. We know what are the principles and the essentials of Islam. Al-Aqidah wal-Arkan al-Iman wa Arkan al-Islam. All this is clear. Al-halal halal wal-haram haram. We know what is halal and we know what is haram. Now, the way you are going to deal with the book in your culture, depending on the priorities that you have to deal with, this is depending on your reality. It's not going to be, I cannot come and say, you know what, in Paris, I know exactly how it runs in Moscow. So let me show you. I am not going to show you anything. This is rubbish. This is wrong. This is not Islam. So when we are dealing with this, we have from the very beginning to start with something which is have a wise way of dealing with diversity and know that from the starting point, there are factors that are part of what we have to deal with. And it's out of wisdom that we have to deal with this. And this is why we don't have a pope. This is why we don't have one structure. We should have many depending on the context, depending on the cultures and depending on the situation, the historical situation now. So also this is something that we need to deal with. So when we say this, we have another factor of division. And now we are entering into the factors that we can change and we have to deal with them. And this is where we have to focus when we say, why is it wrong now? So the first thing that I would say is that why are we wrong when it comes to deal with diversity and we end up being divided? It's mainly because we are trying to change the unchangeable. So we are trying to gather the people and say, oh, forget about the diversity of our views when it comes to schools and cultures. That's wrong. We need to deal with this in a very, very intelligent way. The second thing is that we don't prioritize our way of dealing with these divisions. So there is one field, for example, that it's normal for us to be divided, but we have to deal with it. And this has to do with the political reality. And the political reality, by definition, you will have people who are more on what, if we come with the classical definition in politics today, someone who is much more going to be on the left-hand side of the political spectrum, somebody is going to be on the right-hand side, some is much more concerned with helping the poor, others with my private property and my own interests. I think we have this in Islam. But this is where, as Muslims, knowing our priorities, we have to challenge our political views. Yes, we are going to deal with different political views, but when it comes to governance, when it comes to the reality of how do we deal with power, this is where we have to have a critical discussion. So to think that because I am a Muslim, I'm going to be involved in politics with all the Muslims, that's crazy. It's not going to happen. Of course, we have different political views. Now, what we have to do as Muslims is to acknowledge that we have many different political views, but our responsibility is a shura. Amruhum shura bainahum means we have to discuss this. We have to have a critical input. It's not, I believe in God, and that's unity, it's coming. No, I believe in God, so consultation is necessary. So a space where we talk to one another, where we have this discussion, and at the end, it's not going to be a unanimous. Even with the Prophet ﷺ, in the Prophet ﷺ, in a situation where they have to deal with something which was very simple. Are we going to stay in the city and go outside in the city in Uhud? He was himself the leader and he was in minority. Meaning what? Critical discussion. Critical discussion. And it means that the young within his community who were at the end, who had at the end the majority, he gave them the floor to express themselves and to win. He lost. He lost because he was in minority, because at the end he had to leave the city. So in this discussion, the political views here are very important. Now, the factors of division that we can change. There are factors that are to be known. One factor that we know is important within the community has to do with our ego. And our ego means I'm thinking something. I have an opinion. And because I think that I'm a good Muslim, or I think that I'm an expert, at the end, my ego is taking over everything and trying to impose onto the others. This is the way towards dictatorship. So you know that there are levels of dictatorship. You have the dictators within nation, but within our Muslim organizations, we have dictators, you know, micro dictators. They are dealing with the organization as if they were the only people. I say they come to you and say, you know what? I know the Quran more than you, so I know the way. I'm sorry. So you know the Quran more than me. You know how to read the Quran. It doesn't mean that you know the way. Because ilm al-Quran doesn't mean ilm al-mujtama' or ilm al-waqi'. You don't know the environment. So it's not because, you know, it's as if because somebody knows how to drive a car in Moscow, he will be able to drive the car the same way in another country. No, you are an expert in this field. So the ego here that we can find with our scholars, our leaders, and some of the followers, this is something that it's one factor, one essential factor of division. And people are creating organizations, they are creating societies, and at the end, I did this is my legacy, I did it, so I have to lead it. Look, my brother, my sister, remember the Prophet ﷺ, before he was to pass away, to die, just before a few months, and even he was not able to achieve the expedition, he put as a leader of an army Usama. Usama was 20, sending a message to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Omar and all the others. It's not a question of age, it's a question of competence. And more than this, you have to learn to set aside, to sit down and to let the new generation to come. So we have one of the factors of our division is also the ego of the people that we find in our community. And that's also our love for power, that some, they want to stay in power and they are obsessional about this. And as I said, the political views that they end up to be very, very tough and not understanding this. Now, as Muslims, if we want to deal with the ego, this love of power, this lack of understanding that we need to deal with a Muslim diversity, this is where we have three steps at the local level and at the international level. At the local level, there will be no way for us to deal with this diversity within our community, which, by the way, it's a blessing. It's a blessing that we have many views, because, you know, when you are dealing with another brother or another sister and you see that she or he has other views, this is the way that is teaching you humility. It teaches you two things. The humility, that's my viewpoint, but there are other viewpoints. And the second, it helps you to think again, that maybe I'm just looking at things from the wrong way, or a partial way, or not a complete way. It's not the complete picture that I have. So there is a blessing in diversity. So this is where we should understand that this diversity, the starting point here, has to do with the spiritual experience that every single Muslim, sister or brother, should experience, which has to do with master your ego and work your spiritual life, because this spirituality in your heart, you have to do what Ibrahim alayhi salam did. He was an ummah. He was an ummah, Ibrahim, as it is said in the Quran, meaning that he was himself a world with a diversity with it. So you have to try to harmonize the reality with your heart, and also to work on your ego, to work on your heart, in order to accept this diversity of opinions and to accept that you are not the only one to be right. So it's a personal commitment to accept with your heart, with your mind, and with your life, diversity around you. That's something which is not easy. Don't tell me, oh, very often the people are telling you, you know what, I accept everything. And when you deal with them on the ground, they don't accept. It's just words with no reality. No, here, the spiritual experience is when you deal with your own self and you know that it takes effort to harmonize the diversity within, it takes effort to manage the diversity outside. So this is a spiritual experience where you are checking your ego, you are checking your love for power, you are checking your love for money, you are checking your love for fame, you are checking everything. Because at the end of the day, this is part of one of the main factors within the community, that you think that you are the only one. So this is where it's important. The second important thing that we have to do at the local level is to have open space of critical thinking. So we need to have discussion. Don't try to get unity without critical thinking. That's wrong. So this is where we need to reconcile ourselves with the principle of shura. Shura means that we have to sit and we have to share our views about what are the priorities of our work, and to come to a better understanding. Okay, we don't agree on the way we read the Quran. We don't agree on the way, we don't agree on our respective culture, because we have many cultures. Do we agree on some priorities? What Islam is all about? What do you have to do? So there are 5 principles that we are indisputable in our life. First, you have to serve God. And when you say you have to serve God, you understand that from the very beginning, as Muslims, you have to serve humanity. Muslims and people of other faith. We are not here only to serve Muslims. Are these not our priorities on earth? Al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, meaning that I say la ilaha illallah, and then I follow the Prophet ﷺ, and then I do the good things that I have to do. So these are things that we need to agree and need to know on what do we agree. We agree on one God, and we agree on al-aqidah, and we agree on the pillars of Islam. And then when it comes to action, we agree that we have to serve humanity. And based on this, to serve humanity is always, wherever we are, to be on the side of justice. We are always on the side of justice, always on the side of the oppressed, always on the side of the poor. This is our reality. These are indisputable principles that we need to repeat to the people. So, having said this, our faith is what we have to protect. Poverty is what we have to resist. Corruption is what we have to resist. Equality is what we stand for. Freedom is what we stand for. And then also the way we have to deal with our human beings, because we are dealing with what we call, and from the very beginning in Islam, this human brotherhood. When we come with this and understanding the very message of Islam, we need to have this work, as I said, on our ego, the work where we come together in critical thinkings in our shura, our Muslim organizations, at the local level. Our way of dealing with international issues should be based on this: one faith, many minds, and discussion, critical discussions. Open up within the community the space of critical thinking and shared thinking, and come together in order to have views and to have something that is helping us to have a clear understanding of the challenges ahead. So with this, we also now have to, okay, now we are working, the spiritual experience, the individual spiritual experience is helping us to deal with our sisters and brothers in Islam. Add to this that we have this critical thinking which is necessary now. there is a lack of critical thinking in our communities throughout the world. We are following leaders and we don't follow the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ was dealing with his companions in a way which is follow me but think. So I was saying about, you know, a great leader like the Prophet ﷺ is not the one thinking for you, is the one thinking with you. Okay, he has to think with you. This is the way the Prophet ﷺ, when it came to the Quran, he was receiving the Quran. But when it came to change the world, to be involved, he thought and he was involved with his companions. And he was listening to them. He was listening to his wives. He was listening to the people around him. He was listening to everybody who has expertise. So we need to come to this reality in our society. And now, with this wisdom, brother, my sister, don't try to change the unchangeable. If you want me to read the Quran as you read it, that's crazy. You're mad. If you want me to understand my culture the way you understand your culture, that's mad. If you want me just to be in the same school so fluent, saying that there is only one school in Islam, that's not right. You are, by definition, you are dividing the very moment you try to unite following these, these ways. That's not going to happen. So we have to be wise with the unchangeable factors of diversity and potential division. By knowing that these are unchangeable factors of diversity, we avoid making them factors of division, because we understand that they are going to happen. So we accept this. Now, based on this diversity, let us come, and every one of us has to do his work or her work. Work on your ego. Ask yourself about your relationship with power. Why are you, after 30 years, after 40 years, after 20 years, always leading the organization and telling us that it's open to everyone? As long as you are the leader, it's open to everyone. And then you sit down and you criticize all the dictators around the world. But I'm sorry, at your level, you do exactly the same. So you are controlling everything. There is no space for critical thinking. You want the people to follow not as enlightened believers, but as, blind followers. I'm sorry, there is nothing like blind followers in Islam. By definition, a blind follower in Islam is blind, more than a believer. Blindness, it's the opposition of faith. You can't be faithful, you can't have Iman and being blind. You can't follow. Even with your own, you cannot be blind with your parents. The Quran is telling you, if your parents are telling you to do something which is wrong, you have to say no. So now you go and you follow a leader and you are blind with him or with her. That's not going to work. So I would say here that the spirit, we should not, when it comes to being involved with unity, we should work on two things. This is the marriage between a heart working on the ego, working on this love of power and money and fame and whatever, the worldly temptations. And on the other side, consciousness and a mind and an intellect working on understanding. These are things that I have to deal with. There is this diversity of interpretations. Let us work on what is workable. My ego, our political views, critical thinkings within the community, set the priorities at the local level. What are our priorities? And we know this, that we are here to serve humanity, meaning we are on the side of the oppressed, we are on the side of the victims, we are on the side of the poor, we are here to reform the society for justice, equality, and freedom. This is what we have to do. Bismillah, in the name of God. This is what we are coming to. This is why we are here. And this is where we should understand at the local level. Okay, let us discuss our strategies, our interpretations, be wise with the differences, be strict with the commonalities, and be clever with the priorities. So this is also something which is, but please, if you dream of unity not dealing with reality, you are the main factor of divisions. If you dream of unity without taking into account the reality, you become a factor of division because you don't see what is the reality. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam.
Thank you very much, Professor Ramadan, and thank you for global knowledge-based Muslim vision. And generally, wherever you look, really, division is everywhere at Muslims. But we need to start from ourselves, and it's one of your most gained from one thing that I gained from you now. And it can really will look different at every country. And in Russia, it's by ourselves, and in France, it's ourselves. But Muslims are judged by the behavior and culture of Arabs. It's also very important question, because everywhere generally the world looks to Muslims look to Muslims from view of the Arabs, and you are told that it shouldn't be like that, and I really understood that we need to show how Russians, or for example Russian citizens, how we are Muslims, but not only Arabs, and it's very interesting also. So interesting.
If I may tell you something, please, for now and the future, again, get it right. Don't Arabize Russian Islam or Muslims in Russia. Don't Arabize them. What you can do is to help the Muslims in Russia to be good Russian Muslims, and to teach to some Arabs the way they have to reform themselves.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ramadan, what can you tell about Russian Muslims?
Look, I came 3 or 4 times, I think, in Russia. And what I saw, again, you know, all this discussion, and it's not by accident that you are talking about divisions, because there are divisions there. And there are realities that are political, of course, and there are social divisions also. What is important is 3 things, I would say. I think that the Russian Muslims that I saw are coming from a very long tradition. They know what it means to face repression. They know what it means to face oppression. They know it was difficult, and they went through very difficult times. So for a time they tried to survive, and they had to set the priorities of survival, and they did it. Well, alhamdulillah, this is why you, young Muslim in Russia, you are Muslim, you are aware, and you are now promoting your own identity as a Russian Muslim. And this is based on what your fathers and mothers did through this historical experience. And you have to say, alhamdulillah, many of them didn't even have enough knowledge as Muslims, but they had dignity, and they had this reality, this understanding. We are going to remain Muslims. That's important. There is a second thing which is clear in the Russian reality, is that what I said about diversity, you have it in Moscow. In Moscow, you have Salafi, you have more reformist trend, you have Sufi, very powerful and very old Sufi traditions. And that's also important. You don't have many communication. You are not communicating enough. So everyone is saying that we love unity, but divided. That's our motto. Our motto is that we all like to be united, but divided. So the reality here, again, is for some of us to understand that, yes, there are things that we cannot change, but we need to find a way to have this communication, to understand that the Sufi tradition, when they are clearly respecting the Islamic principles, have to be celebrated, because they are bringing us to our hearts. These are the people we call ulama al-qulub, so the scholars of the heart. And you have people who have been so dedicated in changing the social realities. We also have to celebrate this one. And you had people who are facing political power. We also have to respect these people. So we have to learn this mutual respect, this wisdom, this philosophy of diversity. I wrote a book about this called Towards the Philosophy of Pluralism, and this is also what we need to have. And there is one last thing that it's important, and I would say, I would challenge you on this as Russian Muslims. You also have to deal with a sense of potential racism here that could happen within the community. You know, I'm always challenging the Arabs by telling them you are very often racist towards the black people. And this is happening. And, you know, the Arabs are always saying, oh, there is no racism in Islam. That's true, but there is racism among Muslims. And now, if you go to Russia, the way sometimes you listen to some Russian Muslims talking about foreigners, talking about Caucasians, for example, say, oh, what are you talking about? Are you talking about your brothers and sisters in humanity? Or are you talking about a race? Or are you talking about people that you just despise them? And that's not acceptable. This, you know, unspoken racism amongst Russian Muslims towards some cultures and some origins. No. That's not our religion. That's not Islamic. That's not Islamic. Even if they are poor, even if they are begging in the streets, even if they are demonized by any power on earth, these are yours in Islam and in humanity, and you cannot just accept a kind of racism because it suits you in a specific social context. That I'm sorry, that's not our, and this is what I heard in Russia. I heard this. I say, no, I cannot accept that. You are smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You know Russian Muslims maybe better than we know ourselves. Because you are inside of this topic every time. And one more question. How did Europe endure self-isolation and quarantine? Generally.
Say it again. I didn't get the question.
How did Europe get the time inside self-isolation and quarantine time of pandemic?
You know, you saw what happened during this pandemic and what was happening. In fact, it was a shock because everything has to change in our daily life in Europe. By the way, it was like this throughout the world, of course, mainly in Europe and in the United States of America and the Western countries. At the end, what was the main teaching for everyone at the local or at the personal level was, oh, we have to come back to ourselves and deal with the priorities in ourselves. It's the time of meditating and contemplating. Now we have to be very cautious because there are many things at stake in the whole issue, in the whole process. Because it might be that through this and through the way now we are seeing the transformation of the European economy and the global economy, and something that we are now accepting. In the name of our security, we are accepting to be more controlled. So this could be the birth of a new kind of capitalism in the West, which is in the name of your security. We heard this, by the way, in 2001 after what happened in the United States of America, when it came to discuss terrorism. Terrorism was about, okay, in the name of terrorism, we're going to control you because you know, it's not you, but your neighbor could be a potential terrorist. So let us, you know, control both you and him because we don't know. So you end up accepting this. That's exactly what is going to happen now with the pandemic and with the coronavirus. What we have as a motto coming from all the powers is just give us the power to control you for your security. And I think we have to be very cautious with this because for those people who thought that, you know, European or Western capitalism is bad, it is problematic for all of us because of what we are now promoting around the world. At the end of the day, we are making the poor poorer and we are destroying nature. This is what we are doing with our economic global system. But what is coming now with the Chinese capitalism is the same mindset plus controlling. Plus knowing exactly what you are doing. Look at what is happening now within the Chinese society. So this shift towards the East, when it comes to, you know, a type of capitalism, we should be aware because the people who think, oh, you know what, after the confinement, we are going to be better human being. No, You might be a better human being, but the system is going to be worse. It's not going to change for the better, unfortunately. Wallahu a'lam.
One more question. How will you comment that dua to save the Ummah from internal conflicts and division was refused?
Who was the say it again, the first word?
How will you comment that dua to save the Ummah from internal conflicts and division was refused?
So who is dua?
Dua is dua.
Dua. Okay.
Dua, yes, dua.
Okay, no, that's me. Sorry for that. So how the dua could help us to have this unity again?
Yes, so how this dua to save the Ummah from internal conflicts and division was refused? Why? What can you say about it that it was refused?
Who refused that?
Generally.
No, I think once again, dua, your supplications, your prayers, this is the only thing no one on earth can prevent you from doing. It's impossible. Even, they can tell you, don't speak out. Yes, but you can speak inside, within. And you have to keep this communication with God, with Allah Azza wa Jal, that you are asking for His support, His presence, His forgiveness, as much as His victory. Now we should understand that dua are essential, and we have to pray. And during the months of the month of Ramadan is the month of the dua. And we cannot accept that anyone prevent us from praying the way we want. If it's not loudly, it should be done quietly, it should be done in silence. And Allah is hearing everything, even the words that you are not using. He hears the intentions you have without the words even. He has all the languages, and even your silence is speaking. Your silence is speaking. This is one. But we should also understand that it's not only about dua. Dua is part of a process. You should do as much as you can, and then you pray. Praying is not taking the place of acting or behaving. You have to behave, you have to act, you have to be involved. And you add to your involvement the dua. It's not, I sit down, I'm not doing anything. The word is not working. The poor are poor. The corrupt are corrupt. I don't do anything. I'm very passive. And I say, Allah, no. It's not this. You say, Allah, when you have accepted your role as human being. So wherever we are, we should not accept to be prevented from doing what we have to do. Now, this is where we are talking about something which is essential. There are strategies, there are priorities. So at your local level, do your best to set a strategy with priorities. What is the priority? And the priority is not to agree with your brother on the way you pray, because there are accepted, interpretations on this. It's what do I do once I have prayed? What do I do between two prayers? Do I have to sit down and just look for money? Or do I have to change this society for the better, starting with myself, with my home, and then my neighborhood? This is what we need to get. So dua should not be an excuse for passivity. Dua is the added dimension you make to your activity. So you act and you pray. And not I pray and I stay silent and I stay still, I don't do anything. That's not the way. And I think that we have to be active, and that we have to be involved in our society in such a way. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you very much, Professor Ramadan. I can listen for you, I think, many hours, and our viewers also. So we have two questions to our speakers generally. And one of them is, imagine if you were elevated to the podium and all of humanity paid attention to you. What would you tell to the people? One or two words just.
I would say to humanity, remember that there is one God. Second, remember that you are only a human being when you serve your brother and sister in humanity. So be right, be just, and be committed to justice, love, and equality.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
All this, Bismillah, in the name of God, because I would start with, before there was one humanity, there is only one God. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah.
And the last question, maybe, please list to our viewers 3 things that they should do in their life. The most important 3 things that every person should do, every Muslim person should do in his life, his or her life.
So the first one is, of course, when we believe in Allah, is to talk to Him. Talk to Allah. Talk to Him. Even if you can't talk to your mother or your father or the people around you, He's able to listen to everything. Talk to God. And by the way, if I have to explain this, first thing is to talk to Allah is as much read the Quran, that when you read the Quran, He talks to you and you talk to Him. It's to tell Him your secrets and everything you have in your heart. Talk to Allah. Have your special, He's the best psychologist. He's the best leader, the best educator. And more than that, He knows better than you who you are. So talk to Him, and the way you are with Him will help you to be better with yourself. So first thing is talk to Allah. Believing in God means talk to Him. The second is be disciplined. Be disciplined. Because it's out of discipline that you can be a human being. With your prayers, with fasting, with the rules, with your father and your mother. Be disciplined with your principles. Be disciplined. So discipline is not only with your prayers, but with your human relationships. So it has to do with disciplines and the way you are dealing with time, the way you are dealing with humanity, the way you are dealing with your own, be disciplined even with your mind. Your mind needs for you to read, for you to get knowledge. Be disciplined with this. So be disciplined with all the priorities that you have to be involved with, which is gaining knowledge, praying, fasting, and all the principles. And the third one is give your time, give your wealth, give of your heart, give. In fact, one of the words of give is love. And that's something which is our relationship with Allah should be based on love, and our relationship to humanity should be based on love. And when I say this, I'm saying so give as much as you can. They give from what they have. This is the very definition of a Muslim. And I would add a fourth one, if I may, which I think that we are lacking today. And to tell you, through my experience during the last 3 years, what I would say to Muslims is, please be courageous. Be courageous. Stand for your principles. Stand up. Be vocal. Don't shy away. Don't disappear. Don't be, shy to be a Muslim. Don't be scared to get some principles. Speak out. This is your dignity. It's better to stand up with dignity and to face problems than to think that you are happy when you are a coward. That. By the way, at the end of the day, you cannot be happy being a coward. At one time, you will have to pay the price. Allahu Akbar.
Thank you very much, our dear viewers. Today is our 22nd day live broadcast. Guest is the Professor of Contemporary Islamic Studies at the Oxford University, Mr. Tariq Ramadan. Thank you very much for your time, for all that you have said to us, and it's really very important information just to think. And your last speech about speak with Allah and discipline and give, it's really very simple but very active, I think. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramadan, and we will hope to see you here in Russia with your maybe lectures and maybe our meetings and other special events. So wish you only good luck. Wish you the thankfulness of the God for everything that you do, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Inshallah. Thank you for inviting me. May Allah bless you. Inshallah. Ramadan Mubarak wa Rabbana inshallah yataqabbal minna wa minkum. May Allah accept our prayers and our fasting and our supplications every day during Ramadan and after Ramadan, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.